The Civil War began when Abraham Lincoln won the election for president. The South was not happy that he was elected and thought he would get rid of slavery entirely. So, South Carolina and 6 other states voted to secede from the Union. Then Abraham Lincoln took office in March, and he made it very clear that secession was wrong and unconstitutional. Then he asked the South to come back peacefully. In 1861, the Confederates opened fire on Fort Sumter.
Many hours later.
After 30 hours, the fort surrendered. Now the North knew it would take force to bring the South back. The North was enraged that the South would attack an American fort. The South had an amazing general, Robert E. Lee, one of the best generals. He did not want slavery or secession, but he sided with his home state, Virginia. It was not good for the North because the North did not have very good military leadership. With Robert E. Lee on the South side, they were in trouble. The North came up with a war strategy, the Anaconda Plan. The Anaconda Plan meant that they were going to surround the South, divide the Confederacy into sections, and capture Richmond, the South's capital. Lots of people thought they could win with just one battle, but as you will soon see, they could not. This leads us to the Battle of Bull Run. Now, before the Battle of Bull Run happened, there was a woman named Rose Greenhow, and she spied on the North and then gave the information to the South. This is what actually caused the Battle of Bull Run, because the North didn't even intend to battle at Bull Run. Their plan was to battle them at Richmond, but because the South knew their plan, they met them at Bull Run and started the first major battle of the war. Eventually, the South did a crazy push, screaming and yelling. This scared the North, and they fled back to Washington. This was a Southern victory and a shocking defeat for the North. While the men were fighting, women stepped into every role needed and took over lots of jobs while they were gone. Many of them even worked as spies or nurses in the army. Dorothea Dix led the Union's army. Nursing Anne Clara Barton followed the men onto battle, earning the name the Angel of the Battlefield. After the loss at Bull Run, the North worked hard at the Anaconda Plan. Within a year, they had set up blockades at most of the South's ports, cutting them off from foreign trade and supplies. Then the Union sent 46 ships up the Mississippi to New Orleans, and with such a force at the gates, they surrendered without a fight. General Grant led forces from the north to the south towards the Mississippi. After several victories, Kentucky and most of Tennessee was under Northern control. Now General McClellan sent 10,000 men to Richmond again, but he was again defeated. General Robert E. Lee sent his troops to Maryland. General McClellan and his troops pounded Lee's forces for an entire day. Lee had to retreat with his troops. In this one day, the North had 2,100 killed, with another 10,300 injured, while the South had 2,770 killed, with another 11,000 injured. The better weapons made killing easier in this war. The rifles, cannons, and artillery were much more accurate, while the weapons were more advanced. Medical care was not. Infection, disease, and the open-air environment of war added to the deaths, so the soldiers started to refuse medical care, because so many of them had died after receiving treatment. More soldiers died from disease than actual battles. When the Civil War started, and even though Lincoln was against slavery, he said that this war was about keeping our country together. This changed on January 1st, 1863, when Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. Now the war was also about getting freedom for the slaves. Robert E. Lee invaded the North again. On July 1st, 1863, the Battle of Gettysburg began. General Lee, on the third day, ordered an all-out attack. Most of the advance was stopped by gunfire, and those that did not reach the Union troops were taken out with hand-to-hand fighting. More than 17,500 Union troops and 23,000 Southern troops were killed or wounded after this battle. General Lee could only have defensive battles and made no other attempts to invade the North. Some people in the North just wanted peace, even if the Union didn't stay together. Other groups supported the Southern cause and attacked a group of marching soldiers in Maryland. President Lincoln sent more troops to keep order, and he suspended habeas corpus. After the Battle of Gettysburg, President Lincoln gave the famous Gettysburg Address. The Civil War was the first war to use trains to move and supply troops, telegraph forward plans of communication, and first to be recorded on photographs. When the North left Virginia, they left the Merrimac. The South then covered this ship in metal armor. The North created the Monitor, their own ironclad ship, to battle against the Merrimac. The Merrimac sailed into the Chesapeake Bay, destroying 3 Northern ships. This ship could destroy the blockade part of the Anaconda Plan. The Monitor met up with the Merrimac the next morning. The two fired shots for hours, with neither being hurt much at all, but neither could claim victory. The North used ironclad ships in their plan to control the Mississippi. The Union now controlled both ends of the Mississippi River. In May, General Grant took his army and attacked from the land while the ships on the river fired cannons at Vicksburg. This continued for 6 weeks, and slowly Union forces were gaining control. On July 4th, 1863, Vicksburg surrendered. The Mississippi was now a Union waterway. The South's economy was declining. Union troops cut and burnt crops in the South, and they destroyed rail lines, making it even more difficult to send what little supplies they had to their troops. In 1862, Congress opened the armed forces to African Americans. About 186 joined the Army, and another 30,000 joined the Navy. The 54th Regiment had 1,000 troops, and 2 of them were sons of Frederick Douglass. They were commanded by Colonel Robert Gould Shaw. When black soldiers were first put in the war, they were paid less than the white soldiers. African American soldiers responded by protesting for no pay and writing letters to Lincoln. On urging Congress, they granted equal pay to black soldiers. The 54th was called into its first battle at Fort Wagner. They had added pressures that other soldiers didn't have. If they lost or were captured, the South would put them into slavery. The 54th was attacking Fort Wagner across 200 yards of open land where rifle and cannon fire was free to target. Partial missing half of the 54th lost their life before they retreated. The bravery that they showed earned them respect throughout the Army. As the story spread, more than 166 African-American regiments fought in the war in more than 500 battles, often getting less training and the more run-down equipment than white soldiers. Lincoln then sent Grant to invade Virginia. Grant had 100,000 men up against Lee's 60,000. Grant lost 18,000 but continued to attack and follow Lee. Then Grant lost 7,000 in a 15-minute battle. Grant was able to reinforce his troops with more troops and supplies. Lee could not do the same and lost a lot of men also. Grant ordered General Philip Sheridan to wage total war on the Virginia grain field valley. Sherman also had the orders to wage total war and destroy their war resources. Lincoln and Grant's war tactics paid off, just in time with the advancements of Sheridan and Sherman in the South. As Sherman marched from Atlanta to Savannah, his men destroyed everything that they came across in a 60-mile wide path. After this, Sherman marched north and destroyed all opposition in the Carolinas. The war ended after 9 months, when General Grant finally broke through Lee's forces at Petersburg. Grant's troops marched into Richmond. 2 days later, Lee surrendered and North won.